My parents divorced when I was about 7 because my dad had admitted to having an affair. My mom and I moved out of our house and into an apartment, while my dad immediately moved his mistress into our house because she was pregnant with my twin brothers. My mom was devastated, but she quickly picked herself up for us. She returned to school, and as a result, she continued climbing up in her career. My mom adjusted better to going from a double-income household to a single income. She could contribute a substantial amount of money to my college fund. On the other hand, my dad had a harder time as he now had to support a family of 4, sometimes 5, on a single income, as his wife was a stay-at-home mom. My dad didn't have much disposable income, and so didn't contribute as much to the fund. I'll finish school soon and have a good chance of getting into my first college choice. Unfortunately, my brother, tween, was diagnosed with a kidney disease that has progressed to where he needs dialysis. My dad is drowning in medical debt, so my mom agreed he no longer needed to pay child support. The specialist suggested a different treatment for my brother, as most other treatments didn't help or stopped working, and they're running out of options, short of a transplant. Not doable now. The treatment is not covered by insurance and costs a lot. My dad can't take out a loan due to debt. Dad and his wife sat me down when I was over and asked me if I would let them borrow my college fund to pay off my brother's treatment. They offered to pay the money back, but I knew they wouldn't be able to. I really don't want to give them the money, because I know if I don't get any scholarships, I wouldn't be able to go to the college I want to without going into debt myself. My future would be at risk, and I know my dad wouldn't help if I needed it. In addition, the money technically belongs to my mom. I can't just give it away, and I know she would refuse to give them the money. My dad and his wife are furious at both my mom and me and are trying to guilt me into it. I do feel terrible for my little brother. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. The money isn't yours, firstly. It was allocated by your mother for a specific thing. It was not meant to pay for her ex-husband's kids' treatments. They call it a loan, but it's not. It will never be repaid, and your mom will be out of thousands of dollars of her hard-earned money. And it was grossly inappropriate for your father to ask for your money. They need to come up with other sources, such as holding fundraisers, car washes, yard sales, GoFundMe, and barbecues do well in my area. Or a stepmom needs to work after dad is off work, so he can do childcare. Or a dad needs a second job. They can also look into government aid or medical studies where treatment would be covered. Tell your mom you shouldn't be put in this situation. OP, you have a lovely, understanding, and clear-eyed view of this. He'd never repay you, and you'd be stuck under college debt for 20 years. Ask your mom to be the bad guy. She can have her divorce attorney send a letter telling him the funds are hers to control, and she's not giving up years of her savings for him and his affair partner's expenses. She can also tell him that she'll take him to court to end his custody if he keeps trying to financially abuse a person your age. That's a bit of a feint since you could choose to go no contact at any point, but it might shock him out of his behavior. OP, you need more facts before you make any decision. First, all dialysis in the United States is paid for by Medicaid, even if someone is wealthy. A treatment not covered at all by insurance? That sounds kind of suspect. I would want to speak to the physicians directly. If you're adult enough to be expected to fund this treatment, you're adult enough to get the facts directly. I'm sorry for your sibling, but this is not your problem. This is a problem of your parents' making. Maybe this kid's mom ought to go get a job. Thank you. The twins are homeschooled due to their brother's compromised immune system, so dad's wife actually cannot get a full-time job, and she's also a full-time caretaker for my brother. I've spoken to my mom over the phone after this happened. She calmed me down and told me she would take care of it. I'm 20 and live with my 28-year-old sister. I've been living with her since I was 16. When I turned 18, she told me I'd have to start contributing to her rent and bills to continue living with her. I told her that if she wanted me to pay any bills in the house, I would no longer watch her two children, preschooler and toddler, for free, and she'd have to pay me for the childcare. She works a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and I watch her kids for her while she's gone. I'm in university and take classes online, so it's easy to multitask. Plus, her 4-year-old is in preschool half day, and I'm the one that picks her up and drops her off. Because of my contributions, I expect to be treated like a roommate in her apartment. I may not pay any rent, but that doesn't mean I'm not contributing to the household regarding childcare. She cannot afford daycare. The ones in our area charge around $2,000 for two children every month. She doesn't even pay that in rent. She still chastises me for certain things, like not paying for food or my phone bill. I also can barely have a social life or even a weekend job because I'm always expected to watch her kids so I can live with her rent-free, and she often uses that to her own advantage. And during weekends, doesn't come home at all. I'm sick of it and was ranting to a friend from school about it. She told me that one of her roommates was moving out at the end of this month to return to her home state after a horrible family tragedy. This roommate in particular had paid rent up front for the entire lease next 3 months, so she would be cool with having me in that room for free until the lease ends so I can get back on my feet and land a job that I can pay the rent for the new one. I couldn't pass up on this offer that I knew I would never get again, so I made the choice to move out. I wanted to tell my sister since it was her birthday weekend and I knew she had plans and wasn't planning to come home, and I was going to watch her kids for her as a final goodbye. She returned from her trip yesterday, and I finally set her down and told her I was moving out next week. She started crying, asking how I could do this to her. Knowing that she can't afford childcare and doesn't qualify for assistance, and that she'll have to come up with another form of childcare and must drive an hour to take her kids to our grandparents so that they can watch them, and that would be a huge inconvenience to her, and then she doesn't know if she can handle both the financial responsibilities of rent and daycare, and she'll probably have to move out, and I'm basically ruining her life that she let me live with her rent-free and that. I'm just now leaving her and her kids high and dry, and I'm a huge idiot. Not the idiot. You are watching her kids full-time, which she knows how much that is. That's certainly not rent-free. How does she expect you to earn money to pay rent if you're already going to college and doing 40 hours of childcare? That doesn't even make sense. She'll figure it out. It sounds like it's time for you to move on. Being her 40-plus hours a week babysitter doesn't sound like much of a life. Not just the entire work week, but sometimes 24/7 on weekends. Sis is in for a rude awakening and she needs it. Meanwhile, you deserve a chance to live your life, work to pay your own bills, and finally enjoy having free time on your days off from work like anyone else, including your sister. She will have to drive the kids. Boo-hoo. Ask to the people complaining about your not giving notice. Notice is not the issue. The sister doesn't have the money. Sister could always stop wasting money with her regular outings and weekend vanishings too. Your sister had a deal others would die for. But as with the goose that laid the golden egg, she went and wrecked it out of greed. My wife, 40, and I, 38 male, have been married for 10 years and have 3 kids together, tween and younger. My wife also has a 19-year-old son from a previous relationship. My stepson and I have a pretty good relationship. His dad is and always has been present in his life. But my stepson currently lives with my wife and I. He dropped out of college after 1 semester due to mental health issues. He struggled with anxiety and depression for 3 to 4 years and was doing better before leaving for college. But I think being on his own for the first time triggered some setbacks. And he struggled a lot before deciding to come home. He works part-time but spends almost every other waking moment in his room. We worked with his dad ever since he started showing signs of mental illness. Therapy, counseling, working with doctors, multiple drug combinations, etc. For probably 18 to 24 months, Pretty much all of our parental attention was focused on him and his issues because they were affecting everything and everyone in our family. When he was away at college, I finally felt like I could be a present and active father to my three other kids. I hate to put it this way, but I really felt like I was trying to make up for lost time. I also finally felt joy from parenting again, which hurts to say. But everything with my stepson was so stressful and progress was so slow. I was actually watching my kids grow up instead of missing out on everything. Now that my stepson is living at home with us again, I've tried really hard not to stray away from focusing my time and energy on my younger kids. I've tried to include my stepson in any outings or activities. But the few times he's decided to join us, it's been noticeably less enjoyable for everyone. I don't like saying it, but he can be a joy suck. He tends not to allow anyone else to enjoy something if he isn't. So, I pretty much stopped inviting him along to things. He and my wife have noticed, and my wife called me out on it recently. She told me that he feels left out and wants to be included more. I reminded her of how he behaves when he's out with the family and told her that unless he changes his behavior, I'm not going to allow him to ruin things for our younger kids. She told me that he needs a strong father figure to help him through these hard times. And I reminded her that he is a father who can fill that role, but he doesn't want to live with him because his dad would require him to work full-time and contribute to the household as an adult, something my wife doesn't want to do. I told her that I was through letting him suck all of the time away from our younger kids, and I would continue to prioritize them over him. I told her that I would never ask him to leave, but that he's legally an adult, and I have three young kids who require my time more than he does. She told me his dad would require him to work full-time and contribute to the household as an adult, something my wife doesn't want him to do. Holy cow, he should be with his bio dad. It sounds like structure and purpose will do a million times more than indulging him. Listen to what your therapist says, obviously, but I can't imagine they would disagree. Opie, you are not the idiot. Yeah, it seems like Dad and Opie are the only ones trying to do right by him. Opie's wife needs to let her kid become a functional adult, and the only way that happens is by doing what Bio Dad suggests, finding a stable job and contributing to the household. I'd imagine most therapists would also agree with that suggestion, unless the serious condition wouldn't allow him to work. This is a problem of your wife's making. She and her son must find a solution and stop expecting the world to revolve around him. Lots of people struggle with mental health, including me. Most of us find ways to cope and live our lives in a more or less productive manner. I have all the sympathy and patience for people who try, and admiration and respect for those who try, fail, and try again. I have none for those who refuse to try and those who enable them. My husband, myself, and our two sons visited sister-in-law for 4 nights. We do this once a year. We live in separate states, and usually other family members come as well. But this year, it's just us. I'm 32 weeks pregnant, so the travel was rough on me anyway. We drove because I can't fly, and it's a 21-hour drive. Well, sister-in-law had to work for 3 of the days that we were there. And on those days, she would come home at 4 p.m., look at me, and say, "So, what are you cooking tonight?" The first 2 times she said it, I just laughed it off, and so did she. So, I thought she was joking, but apparently she wasn't. We purchased food every time we came here as well. So, we spent $300 on food for our stay. And for context, the guys were out fishing and stuff, so they weren't home to cook. Or my husband absolutely would have. He loves grilling. The 3rd time she asked, I didn't say anything or laugh because it was getting old. What she then looked at me and said, "It's the least you can do considering I worked all day while you sat here doing nothing." This is utter BS because I was left at the house with her kids and my kids all day. Because this was a shift she picked up after we got here. and her husband and my husband had already left for the day before she took off for her random shift that she didn't tell anyone about. I tell her at this point that I'd taken care of 7 kids all day at 32 weeks pregnant when I'm supposed to be a guest in her home and shouldn't be made to do anything anyways. I made this comment because she asked me to do a load of her laundry and do up the dishes when she was at work, which I did, no question. She just got irritated with me and walked off mumbling under her breath. So I took my kids and left to go get takeout for us and texted my husband giving him the rundown. He immediately returned home and played mediator, but told his sister that she shouldn't have expected me to pick up house chores, babysit, and cook dinner when I was pregnant and a guest here. We left a day early, but people are saying I'm ridiculous because it wasn't a big deal and that I should have just cooked for the 11 people in the house because sister-in-law worked. Edit. The men fish every day we're here. When they get home and after we eat around 4 p.m. All the ladies take off and do whatever they want while the men stay home with the kids and have fires and esmores, movies, snacks, and bedtime around 10 to 11 depending on the activity that night. It's equally split. Also, I have 2 kids. She has 5. I don't need to slow down on having kids because 7 for one person is too much. Sister-in-law picked up these shifts. She was supposed to have the entire 4 days off. She never ran it by anyone until after the guys had already left for the day. And generally speaking, the guys don't have service where they go fishing. So, I had already cooked for 8 people, all the kids and myself twice during those 3 days and did laundry and dishes more than enough for a guest invited to your home under the false pretense of a vacation. The rest of the family, mother-in-law and my other sister-in-law were supposed to attend, but mother-in-law fell ill with a nasty sinus cold and stayed home. And my other sister-in-law tended to her. We make this trip every year, and I generally enjoy coming here. So, I decided to come down this way. My kids love seeing their cousins, and my brother-in-law is my husband's best friend. So, I didn't want to damper the mood just because I'm pregnant. You had my not the idiot and drove 21 hours to babysit 7 kids while pregnant. Helping out when you're a guest is reasonable. Being the housekeeper/nanny when you're a guest isn't reasonable. Maybe sister-in-law needs help in the house or an escape and saw you as her solution. Doesn't matter. She didn't ask and you didn't offer. LOL to the people saying you're ridiculous, and it wasn't a big deal. Excuse me? Sister-in-law was a huge idiot. It's also extremely rude to pick up extra work shifts while you have a guest visiting who drove 21 hours to visit and expect them to babysit their kids plus cook and clean. What kind of BS is that? Also, to only reveal that she's leaving after the men have left for the day and the belief that the vacation is going to plan and their wives are looking after the kids together is a spiteful move. Honestly, I take this as a sign that she isn't really happy about hosting you, to be honest. For future visits, stay somewhere else and coordinate the things you do together. You are the idiot, but especially the 2 husbands, and you don't have to make excuses for 2 grown men who are fathers. S'mores and movies aren't wrangling. It's fun, especially compared to laundry and real cooking with cleanup involved. Why did you guys decide to make this trip at this time? Sounds like a really bad idea in the first place. Your sister-in-law is not a big fan of this yearly tradition, having your family, your mother-in-law, and your additional sister-in-law stay at your house for a week, and chose not to work to have some time for herself. I'm more sympathetic to your sister-in-law here. She's not getting any vacation at all, and you're putting all the blame on her. I, a nearly adult male, had not spoken to my father in a little over a year until he called to tell me his wife was pregnant and high risk, and he wanted me to help him look after her. My reason for not speaking to my father is he had an affair with his wife while he was married to my mom. They worked together, she was his boss technically, and when they got found out, they were fired. She was his supervisor, and it was against the rules to be involved with someone you're in a position of power over, but they also did stuff at work, which was also against the rules. They tried to blame Mom and attempted to disparage her to me and others because they were angry Mom was so angry at them. My father's wife said she had done nothing wrong and didn't like the hostility aimed at her when she was an innocent party. I was a younger teen when all this went down. He brought this woman into our home, expected us to be kind to her, and accept that they wanted to be happy together. He expected me to be more welcoming than I was. I told him to go screw himself and that I didn't want to be around either of them, and they were disgusting. My father had every other weekend custody of me through the divorce proceedings, but Mom and I fought and won the ability for me to decide if I wanted to go to his place or not. Once that was in my hands, I stopped all contact with him and refused to step inside his house. So he called me to tell me about his wife's pregnancy and how it's high risk. I didn't answer, but he left a voicemail. He called me back a few times until I answered. He said she's unable to work and she's home alone a lot while he works. She can't do much for herself, and he wanted me to care for her and their house. I was like, no way I'm taking care of his wife. He said if I don't want to do it for them, think of the baby who'll be my little brother. And he was like, surely you'll want a relationship with him. I said, nope, I won't ever see his new kid, and I won't be his kid's big brother. My father was saying that's not how you treat family. I told him he ceased to be my family when he decided to try and turn me against Mom and brought his side piece into the family home. I told him Mom had done nothing wrong. He cheated, and there he was trying to poison me against her. My father argued that it had nothing to do with me. I pointed out he made it something to do with me when he tried to use me. He protested some more and said he needed help. I said he could take care of his wife, and when it came to that, he could take care of his family and leave me alone. He lectured me about people needing help occasionally, and I'm being a little idiot about this. He said she could lose the baby if forced to do too much. I told him that wasn't my problem. Am I the idiot for telling my estranged father he can take care of his own wife? Not the idiot. Your father sounds like a narcissist. Stay away. Otherwise, he'll make your life a nightmare. He created this situation and could hire someone to care for his wife. He's also putting you in a bad position. If something bad happens to his wife, it could be anything out of your control. He will blame you and try to put that burden on you. You're not even an adult yet and should be going out and living your life. The part that gets me is his new wife saying she did nothing wrong. She had an affair with a married man, and that marriage broke up. And if she didn't do anything wrong, where are all her friends? Why aren't they rallying around her? Just what is doing something wrong, in her opinion? They're both narcissists. This is what makes little sense. Their first resort is Opie. They must have lost many friends and family members over this, if they're this desperate. Opie, you can work to forgive him for yourself, but that doesn't mean you have to have a relationship. Something I've learned is that not everyone deserves to be forgiven. Losing employment from a work affair with your boss is a foreseeable outcome. Alienating your kid by trying to bring your affair partner home is a very foreseeable outcome. Having a high-risk pregnancy over 40 is a very foreseeable outcome. Opie, I don't know what kind of shrooms your father is smoking, but it's better to stay away, far away from him. Your dad makes decisions without considering dealing with the consequences of his actions. You aren't responsible for trying to take care of him in that. He will learn, or not, on his own time. I, female, 26, have 3 older siblings. This is about my oldest sister, Abby, 37. Abby has a son, kindergartner, and I have a daughter, toddler. Abby dealt with years of fertility issues and had probably 10 plus losses. Then she had her son, of course. He was Abby's miracle rainbow baby. We were so happy for her. But then it leads to Abby spoiling her son and letting him get away with everything because he's a miracle and he's special. Because of that, everyone has always bit their tongue when it comes to her son. On Saturday, I had my daughter's birthday party. It was mostly family, and a few of my close friends were invited. I invited Abby and her son because everyone else in our family was invited. So, I felt bad excluding her. We had different activities for the kids to do. Abby's son didn't like any of them. He was upset none of the presents were for him. He didn't want to eat any of the food we had. He then decided to try to push the cake off the table because he was mad the cake wasn't his. I got super upset at Abby for allowing her son to act that way. She went on to say her son is special. I said her son is only special to her, which is understandable. But to everyone else, he's a spoiled brat, which shouldn't be overlooked because he was your special miracle baby. Abby called me a witch and left crying. A few family members have since called me an idiot because I've never dealt with a miscarriage. So, I don't understand how painful it was for Abby to deal with years of that before her son. It's not like I don't realize her son is special to her, but it doesn't give the excuse for Abby to allow him to act like a spoiled brat. Not the idiot, and you're 100% correct. While he is her miracle baby, no one else in the world will coddle him except her. And she's raising him to be a spoiled, entitled brat, which will only bring him issues later in life. He needs manners and discipline, and your sister needs a wake-up call. He didn't mean to steal, assault someone, whatever stupid thing he did, because he thinks he can get away with it. She should realize this now than when he's older and there are real-life consequences to his actions. How much hate do you have for your kids that you refuse to teach them the basic skills of living in a society? Tell the flying monkeys that your sister is harming her child by not preparing him for living with others in the same society. The kid will go to school soon, and it'll be hard for the kid if mom doesn't get her head out of her butt. I don't know why people cannot say, everyone's the idiot here, in situations where it's obvious that everyone's the idiot here. Your sister's son acted inappropriately, and apparently she didn't stop him, which sucks. But telling her that her son is a spoiled brat is uncalled for. In addition to that, it's not helpful. If you can tell someone lovingly that what they're doing is wrong, then maybe they'll listen to you. But if you go on the offensive, it puts them on the defensive, and nothing is accomplished. Rather than trying to view this through the lenses of an adult, parent, aunt, etc., you're calling your nephew names. There's likely more to the story than you're sharing. I, 49 male, am getting married to my fiancé, 41 female, in a month, and the wedding preparations have gone well, except for one issue. My fiancé's family is primarily conservative and thus unsupportive of same-gender relationships. My fiancé's siblings plan to bring their children to our wedding. They obviously wouldn't want their kids to witness a gay couple at our wedding. Then they'd need to explain the situation to them. So we decided to disinvite my son's 21 partner and his 20s male from our wedding to avoid such issues. I thought my son would be mature about it and understand our side. But instead, he kicked up a huge fuss about it, saying that I'm an idiot and embarrassed by him, and that if his boyfriend can't attend the wedding, then he won't either. He's being really unreasonable, especially because he and his boyfriend haven't even been together for that long. So it's not like he's really entitled to be invited to any family events yet. And my fiancé does take my side. However, my son is vehement that I'm an idiot and even got his mom, my ex-wife, to essentially gang up on me about this issue. Am I the idiot? Edit. My fiancé and I don't plan to hide it, per se, but it doesn't mean it needs to be thrown into their faces either. You are the idiot. You made a major mistake and uninvited the wrong people. The bigot should be told not to come, not your son's partner. If your fiancé is defending her family's bigotry over your son's existence, then the one person you should have uninvited was her. You've essentially told him that you're ashamed of his perfectly normal lifestyle. I hope you're ready to be iced out of his life if you continue down this path. Oh, they're conservative? No, sweetie, they're toxic idiots. And by you thinking it's acceptable to cater to that crap, makes you a toxic idiot as well. You've just shown your son where your loyalties lie, with your coward fiancée and her awful family, instead of your own child. Don't be surprised when you're not invited to his wedding someday. He's correct. He's not the immature one here. That would be you. Forget the wedding. What about the rest of your life? Who marries someone who thinks his child is a deviant monster? Who invites a room full of people to say anything if they think your child is evil? It's not just the wedding. The poor kid's dad straight up chose a family of ignorant bigots over his own child. It never ends. It's never about alienating a person for a single event. It's about alienating them for the remainder of your combined lives. Sorry, son. You can't come to Christmas this year because I have to choose my nieces and nephews from my second wife's family over you. Because you have the big gay. I don't know how to explain to my bigot in-laws that love is love. Your son would be a fool to ever speak to you again. Hope your marriage works out, because it's all you'll have in your life. I, 26, female, live in England. I own my home and understand that I'm fortunate, but I also worked hard for it. Any money I received or earned while working part-time till graduation went into my savings account. Most people on my street are social housing tenants. I'm still determining what that is, but they've explained that you're eligible for the scheme if you're on a low income. It's more secure than the private sector, as you mostly get assured tenancies, even though there are different tenancy types. For a while, I got on well with my next-door neighbors, Emily and Ben. They also have 3 kids, a young male teen, a female tween, and a female preschooler. But soon I started experiencing a lot of problems from next door. I work from home often, and I could hear shouting next door, constantly. Ben is 5 feet 11 inches, 145 kilograms, and quite loud and intimidating, and I could hear their kids screaming and crying. I had to ask them to lower their voices daily, and I even explained that I work from home. The next set of problems revolved around the young teen son. I spotted their son climbing over a wall to get into my garden to get his football back, which at first I ignored it. Then, after it happened 10 times, I finally decided to speak with his parents, and I can't remember what I said entirely. Still, it was something like, "Hey, I just wanted to have a word as I've seen your son trespass 11 times to get his ball from my garden. I would appreciate it if you could get him to stop, as he is trespassing, and if he just came around to the front to knock on my front door and asked for his ball back, I would happily collect it for him." The neighbors apologized and said they'd make sure that their son didn't do it and knocked. Their son did it again a few days later while I was in my lounge. I walked into my garden, which made him jump, and spoke with him. I told him I'd seen him trespass to collect his ball on various occasions. I told him I had talked with his parents and that trespassing is a crime, and I would appreciate it if he could just come to the front and knock in the future. He didn't say anything and just went back into his garden. I informed his parents and they apologized, but it continued. I got fed up with it and decided to invest in CCTV. Finally, I wrote a letter to residents on my road to give them a week's notice that CCTV is being installed at my address, and it'll cover my entire garden, and it will also cover my doorway. I also wrote that I'm getting a Ring doorbell camera. After installing CCTV, I thought it would stop the kids from trespassing. It continued. I saved the footage, filed a police report against the son for trespassing, and sent all my evidence to the police. I knew there was a strong chance that nothing would happen, but I just wanted the son to have some responsibility. When my neighbors found out, they were angry as heck with me, and since then our relationship soured. My siblings found out about this and think I'm a total idiot for this. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. How is this kid retrieving his ball from your yard hurting you? Also, you made a big deal out of telling them not to bother you because you work from home, but then you're telling them, but have your kid knock on my door to get his ball back. Your relationship with your neighbor soured because you're being needlessly petty and hard to live around, and you called the police on them because a child was retrieving a toy. Congrats. Low-income housing isn't a scheme. It keeps the lower-income people, usually families, from homelessness. Legally, you aren't an idiot, but as a neighbor, you are for sure. The kid sounds like he has a rough home life and is just getting his ball out of your garden. He doesn't probably talk to any adult in his life, much less a guy who keeps complaining about him to his parents. If he's not wrecking anything in your garden, you are the idiot for making his life harder. Yeah, Opie comes across to me as someone who wanted to live in Kensington, but couldn't afford it, and is now disgusted that she has to live with people with low incomes. If he knocked on your door every time he needed the ball back, you'd just complain about that too, since it would interrupt your work from home. It's a kid and his ball. Good lord, lady. 27 male, am engaged to Sky, 26 female, and we have our bridesmaids and groomsmen already chosen. My groomsman will be Sky's brother, Kai, a great friend of mine, and my best friend, Nick. Sky has her two closest friends as bridesmaids. I have a 24-year-old stepsister, with whom I'm not close, and Sky is maybe seen twice in our 7-year relationship. She's not in the wedding. She's just a regular guest. This bothered my dad's wife, and she offered us $3,000 toward the wedding to include her daughter. We turned her down. Sky left the decision to me, and I didn't even need to consider it. My dad and his wife are saying I'm unreasonable and I should accept the compromise because her daughter was 4 years old when I became her brother, and they know she feels hurt that she wasn't asked to be a bridesmaid. They said she'd be crushed on the day, seeing Sky's brother as my groomsman, and knowing she wasn't asked to be a bridesmaid as my only sibling. I told them Sky and Kai are close, and Kai's one of my closest friends. Sky's met my stepsister twice, and I never felt close to her. They said the money should have made an enormous difference, and offering that compromise was more than generous. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. The wedding party is who the bride and groom feel most deserve the honor, and who they want standing with them. It was honestly lovely of the bride to leave the decision up to you, as it's her bridal attendance the stepsister would be part of. The decision has been made, and honestly, does your stepmother think her daughter would feel better knowing the only reason she's in the wedding is because you were bribed into including her? If this is how your stepmother approaches things, I understand why you aren't close to her. I can't imagine your parents really thinking this through. I'd be devastated to learn I was made a bridesmaid because my parents paid the couple getting married to include me. How could they not see how that's so much worse than being a regular guest? God, that would be so humiliating. I can't even imagine being in that situation. This is so wrong on so many levels. If that 3K was accepted, the stepmother would think she was running the wedding. Remind them that the stepsister doesn't need to come if it'll be too hard on her. It's not like being in the wedding is a day of game decisions. No amount of money changes the fact that it's your special day. Your parents. Hey folks, welcome back to my channel. Today's story is about revenge. Opie's wife left him for a high school dropout affair partner who is broke as a joke. Now Opie is living his best life after he got a promotion at his job, and his wife is now begging for him to take her back. In today's second story, Opie's girlfriend is begging for mercy after he kicked her out, when finding out she still has feelings for her ex. Now, let's get into today's stories. Opie's wife started to like her personality, silly me, and after 3 months of fooling around, I decided to give the relationship a try. She was from a different town, about an hour away, but she would spend every weekend, holiday, and vacation with me at my place. When we met, I was a CEO and project leader of a company some other fellas, and I tried to build from the ground up, but the owner, the boss, unfortunately wasn't able to secure enough funds for us to continue working on it, despite the fact that we were 2 to 3 months away from putting the product on the market. I'm from an area, a country in Europe, where jobs are really hard to come by, but nevertheless, I applied for everything I was qualified for. I didn't care. I just needed a job. I got quite a few interviews, but no luck actually securing a job. This went on for 6 months. Of course, the fact that I didn't have a job made us both a bit uneasy, but I really didn't get a feeling that it was affecting our relationship at all. At the beginning of this year, in January, I had a meeting with my counselor at the Unemployment Bureau. She asked me if I wanted to attend some courses where they teach me to code. Without hesitation, I said yes. Not only would I be able to get a job, but I wouldn't need to worry about employment for the rest of my life. I applied, and a few days later, I found out that they accepted me. I don't know what their criteria was, but I knew that they didn't want to take just anyone, and I was ecstatic. But something was off. A few days prior, I started to notice her being kind of weird, cold, unattentive. I knew something was amiss. She was starting fights over nothing. I couldn't make sense of it at the time. In one of the arguments we had, I said, "Look, everything is going to be fine now. I'll learn to code, and after a few months, we'll be set for life." And she responded with something along the lines of, "Who cares? You're going to fail miserably anyways." Phew. That was weird, I said to myself, but I shrugged it off as her being in one of her bad mood swings. Didn't think much about it at the time. As you might have figured out by now, there was someone else in the picture. A week later, she dumped me for her coworker, a high school dropout working a manufacturing job. I was beyond shook. I sat in my pain for the next 3 months, but then it was high time for me to stop feeling sorry for myself. As I had started with my classes, COVID postponed the whole thing a bit. And I had a lot of work to do since I had never, ever seen code before in my life. Now, mind you, these courses were Microsoft courses, and the exams we were studying for were Microsoft exams, for which they only gave us 3 months of time, counting down from the last lecture of each course. So I had my work cut out for me. These kinds of exams are usually taken by people who have a degree in computer science, or at least employed programmers for the last few years. One day I got home from my classes and opened my laptop. I read the book and did some exercises until like 1 a.m. I was drained, and the more I was looking into it, the less I understood. But at least I got started. I went to bed, tossing and turning, and thought to myself, what in the hell did I get myself into? I will never pass this stuff. Then, out of nowhere, I heard those words in the back of my head from when she was cheating on me with the other guy. Who cares? You're going to fail miserably anyways. I lit up like a Christmas tree, got back up, and continued to code until 4 in the morning. Every time I was exhausted and about to lose it from all the new information, I remembered those words, and it was more than enough to keep me going. Today, my fellow betrayed, I passed the first Microsoft programming exam, and I have already been studying for the second one for the last 2 months, a totally different programming language, which I plan to take and pass as well. Like the title says, sometimes the much needed motivation comes from a strange place. I just wanted to share this with people who can relate in some way to the story, as I haven't told anyone else yet. Update. It's been a little over a year since my first and last open topic on this subreddit. At this opportunity, I'd like to thank every single one of you for your support and your encouraging words. At the end of each year, I like to take some time for myself and look back on the year. Therefore, I decided to write another post to this community since it has been so helpful and encouraging to me in the past. Hopefully, it will inspire even one person going through the same turmoil and hurt I went through almost 2 years ago. So what happened since my last post? I got my first software developer gig at the very beginning of the year. The very first company I sent my CV to decided to hire me not long after my original post. I started work in the beginning of January this year. My initial contract was only for 6 months. Understandably, the company wanted to make sure that they didn't take on board a cat in the bag, and I was eager to start my career. So I took the job. They allowed me to work from home, although the offices were only a 3-minute drive from my place. I decided to make sure that I took full advantage of the opportunity in order to display to the whole world who I was and what I was capable of. After about 3 months on the job, I was having a Skype call with the lead tech of the software we were developing. He was not a member of the company, but was a private contractor. This guy was one of the most respected developers in the whole country and had been working for himself for the past decade. Toward the end of our conversation, he said, "Hey, do you work on any projects for yourself?" I responded with, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I have a lot of clients and they're all looking for software developers. You've got some real talent, so let me know if you're interested. I can recommend you to them." I said, "Well, not right now. I have a non-compete clause in my contract, but that contract will expire in the summer, and I can hopefully renegotiate with my company to take the clause out." He replied, "Do that and then notify me." Thus, at the end of 6 months, the CEO of the company called me. He said that they were ecstatic with my work ethic and my potential, and that they would like to extend my contract. I said, "Sure, I'm interested." I mentioned that I wanted my non-compete clause out of my next contract, and he responded with, "Well, I'll have to check up with the owner first on that." He then proceeded to tell me the salary they were prepared to offer me in our new deal. I immediately knew I was worth more than that. In my mind, I was like, "You're absolutely insane if you think I will sign that." But I responded by saying, "I'll get back to you." I could hear in his voice that he was taken aback a bit by my response, but he said, "Okay, notify me after you think about it." I gave him a call a few days later, a day before my contract officially expired. We talked for a bit, and he said that the owner did not like the idea of me opening up my own software developing business, as they were scared that it would affect my focus and work in their company. I said that I understood, but I knew that I wasn't backing down from that as independent software developers were making a killing out there. Later that day, I responded to him with an email where I stated what kind of salary I wanted, and that I wanted the non-compete clause out of the contract, and those terms were non-negotiable. The next day, the day my contract officially expired, I got a call from the owner. Within 15 minutes, he had agreed to all my terms. All I had to do was sign with them for an indefinite term. And at the very end of the conversation, the owner said, "Oh, and one more thing. You are not a software developer anymore. You are head of IT development." I responded with, "Damn it, I should have asked for a higher salary." We both laughed, happy that we had reached an agreement. I accepted the offer and started contacting the companies the lead tech connected me with. Long story short, I finished this year with not only getting a job, but becoming the of the department at the company that hired me. And after my job, I am working for clients in the afternoon and evening that are working on projects for the state. Yes, you read all of that correctly. People admire me and respect me. And needless to say, money is the least of my worries nowadays. My monkey branching ex, as far as I know, she is still with the loser she dumped me for, struggling to make ends meet every month. If she had any concept of loyalty, she could have been a retired stay-at-home wife and mom by now, which she stated multiple times was her wish. I guess she would rather struggle for the rest of her life than support her man and wait another year and a half. Oh, well, c'est la vie. Merry Christmas to every single one of you. If there is anything I want you to take from my update, it's that you should take that pain and hurt and turn it into a fire in your belly that will propel you to new heights and enable you to live a life you never even dreamed of. I know it is still pushing me to be even better and achieve even more every single day. OP, I'm glad to hear you are able to bounce back strong. The best revenge sometimes is bettering yourself. No hateful back and forth, no nuclear option. Just be the best you can be. I'm a true believer in you reap what you sow. Now, let's get into today's second story. Hello, all. I wanted to share my story about my ex cheating on me. It kind of has a wholesome end to it. This was a tough one to deal with for a while, but time healed the wounds from it. Essentially, things felt like it was a happily ever after before she had to go away for a work trip and ended up with her ex. I will post the full story here, too, because it's still good for me to get this off my chest, even though a few years have passed now. So I met my ex-girlfriend at a bar one night when we were out with groups of our friends. She and I hit it right off and exchanged numbers. Before long, we were texting regularly and became an item not long after that. I had dated a fair bit before her, but we really clicked. I actually had that feeling of the one for the first time ever. We had a ton in common, got along famously, had similar goals in life, and just really enjoyed each other's company. She had dated a fair bit before me, too. When we got to the talks of exes, there was one that kept coming up. Let's call him Ethan. She talked about how she thought he was the one, but he was a dick to her, left her a couple of times, and wasn't very well liked by her family or friends. I could tell she had an infatuation with him as she had mentioned moving on, but he would always weasel his way back in. She assured me, though, that he was gone for good and that she had long blocked him everywhere. That gave me a sigh of relief, but deep down, I just had a feeling. Fast forward 9 months. Things were going real well, and we were looking at getting our first apartment together. We were zeroing in on a couple of places, and were getting ready to make offers. I already had my own place, and she was still with her parents, but was practically living at my place at that point. We just wanted to get more space in a place that was truly ours. One day, she came home from work and said, the craziest thing happened. Remember my ex, Ethan? He got hired in the sales department of my company. My stomach dropped when I heard that. She worked in the operations department of her company, and I knew that they worked closely with sales for projects. She had started working there a few months prior, and I would like to think it was completely by chance, but you never know. I asked her if this would be a problem. She said no. She would be avoiding him, but also felt that time had passed and that they could be professional together. I did not have a good feeling about it, but she assured me it would be no issue, and that if there was, she would look to move. That was when things started to change. At first, it was small things. She wouldn't want to meet for lunch as often. I used to hear from her throughout the day, and then it became an odd text here and there during the work days. But outside of work, everything was fine. We were still getting along. I didn't notice her more preoccupied with her phone. I never checked it or anything like that, and she was still coming and going at regular times. She just kept saying it was getting busy at work when I pressed about her not engaging as much during the day. Fair point. Then the big one came. She came home and told me that the company was flying her team alongside sales and marketing to their head office for a few days for specialized systems training. I asked if everyone on all teams were going, and she said yes. Subconsciously, I knew right then that it was over. I was trying to play it cool, but inside I knew something might happen there. I still gave her the benefit of the doubt, but told her I was concerned about them being away together. She assured me nothing would come of it, and that she had barely spoken with him. It would be fine. On the day of the trip, I drove her to the airport. It wasn't a long flight, but she texted me when she landed, and we had a Skype call from her hotel room. She said she was going to dinner and for some drinks with the team later, and that she would talk again before her day started. That was the last time I spoke with her for the entire trip. She texted me when she got to the restaurant. Then it was radio silence for 3 whole days. I texted her asking how it was going. Nothing. I tried calling and got her voicemail. I just said I wanted to see how it was going. Nothing. She texted me once after 2 days that she was fine and just swamped, that she was tired when she finished up and would call me before she left. She didn't. On the day of her return home, I texted her saying that if she wanted me to pick her up from the airport, she needed to let me know. Otherwise, I wouldn't be there. I was so pissed at that point. I get things come up and you get busy, but I just felt like something was going on deep down. I never heard from her. I finally texted her that I was going to be at my place and that it would be nice to see her when she got back. I tried to keep calm, but just knew that something was up. A few hours went by, and then all of a sudden, the door opened. She came in and started saying how much she missed me. I asked her how she got back from the airport. She said a friend drove me here. I asked if it was Ethan, and she said maybe. At that point, I was enraged but still kept calm with her. I told her I thought something happened between them while she was gone, and I wanted to know the truth right then. She kind of stared off blankly and then started crying. She said yes, it did. She said at first it was good intentions and she had no plans to see him, but that they got talking when the team was at the bar, and then one thing led to another, and she was back in his hotel room with him. She then said they pretty much had sex the entire time they were at the company head office, which is why I never heard from her. She tried to defend herself, saying that he was her one that got away, and this provided her some closure. None of that made any sense to me. She then told me she got it out of her system and that it would not happen again. I told her that she was still working with the guy, so there was no way it was over. I told her it was over for us though, and she had 24 hours to get her shit out of my place. She begged and pleaded to stay, but I wouldn't have it. She eventually left and within a month was officially dating her ex again. No surprise there. They actually seemed to make it work and got married not long after too. Good for them. Happy ending, I suppose. It messed with me for a long time and I had a hard time trusting people again. Eventually I moved on too, and it was all for the best. OP. I'm glad you were able to overcome what happened. Your ex may have gone off to marry her affair partner, but I assure you that in a few years they will be divorced, and she will come crawling back to you wanting you to give her another chance. When she eventually does, you know what to do. Give her a trash bag while she's at the door and tell her she needs to take the trash out. I'm sure she will get the message. Thanks for taking the time to listen to today's stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and comment below on what your thoughts are on today's stories. If there's a story you'd like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me.
My girlfriend and I met 3 years ago through some mutual friends at a birthday party. We were both single at the time, and we happened to be standing by the snack table at the same time. I thought she was cute, so I struck up some conversation and we hit it off. From the beginning of our relationship, I could sense that our connection was deeper than anything I experienced with anyone else. I loved being around her. She was funny, she was cute, and she was very ambitious in her goals. She was upfront with me at the beginning of our relationship about some trust issues that she had. In the past, she had been cheated on by numerous partners. I had never cheated and I never planned to. I've always thought it was one of the lowest things you could do in a relationship. There's never a good reason for cheating, and if you are having second thoughts about a person, it's always best to talk to them and either work through those feelings or end the relationship. She was happy that I agreed with her on that, and we had a solid foundation to build our relationship on. About a year into our relationship, she started suspecting that I was having an affair. I did everything in my power to show her that I wasn't, but she was still very insecure about it. It put a lot of strain on our relationship because I felt like I was constantly under scrutiny. I genuinely was not doing anything, so I was offended that she would think that I was. However, at the same time, I understood that she was coming from a place of trauma and she couldn't help what she was doing. I tried everything I could to prove to her that she was the only one for me. Eventually, she understood and we moved forward. Just a little background on me. I was raised by a single mother and I have 4 sisters. All of my life, I have been surrounded by women, so I know how to treat them. Because of this, I do have a lot of female friends. I cannot stress this enough. Absolutely none of them are the stereotype of the girl best friend that you see online all the time. None of them want to sleep with me. At work, we had a new hire. Let's call her Jane. I oversaw all of the train for her, and over the weeks we spent working together, we established a little friendship. I didn't think anything of it. She was a coworker and someone that I talked about Marvel movies and video games with. She had my phone number, and one night, She texted me a link to an article announcing a sequel to a video game she and I were both fans of. She was new to the city, and I knew that she just wanted to meet people to hang out with. It really wasn't a big deal. However, my girlfriend saw the message, and she was instantly questioning me about why Jane was texting me. I was exhausted, and I really didn't want to get into a big fight with her, so I just told her it wasn't an issue and I went to bed. Apparently, my dismissive behavior was very alarming to her, and she thought it was proof enough that I was cheating. Over the next couple of weeks, she was constantly hounding me to show her my phone and prove to her that I wasn't cheating. Every time she asked to see my phone, I showed her. I had nothing to hide. But then, out of nowhere, it all stopped. We never had a conversation about how she was sorry for how she treated me or how she realized I was being truthful. I just went home one night and suddenly realized that she wasn't accusing me of cheating on her anymore. Not long after that, the Instagram messages started. A woman named Sabrina started following me and messaging me on Instagram. She was very cute. Had I not been in a relationship, I would have maybe reached out to her and tried to set something up. But I was in a relationship, so I wasn't interested. Sabrina was very flirty over messages with me, but I consistently shut it down. She wasn't taking no for an answer when I told her that I had a girlfriend. So I went to my girlfriend and told her about the messages up front. The last thing I wanted was for her to discover that I was having this conversation and hiding it from her. My girlfriend was relieved that I told her about it. Shortly after, she confessed that she paid Sabrina to message me. Apparently, Sabrina had a modest side hustle by doing loyalty tests on other girls' boyfriends. She would reach out to them and see if they were willing to hook up with her when she was in their city. I was rightfully very angry after finding out she did this. I had already been put through a lot by her with her accusations, but this just felt like something else entirely. I hadn't done anything to make her distrust me, and her actively trying to get me to do something incriminating felt like a violation of our trust. After a long argument, I decided that I wanted to give her a little taste of her own medicine. I demanded that I get to look through her phone and see what else she had been doing. For someone so adamant about being able to look through my phone whenever she wanted to, she was very protective of her own. Immediately, I recognized that as being a red flag. She didn't want to give it to me, so I told her that if she didn't trust me to look at her phone after everything she had done to me, then I didn't know where our relationship was going to be going. I felt bad for throwing that ultimatum in her face, but I was very angry at the time. My girlfriend handed me her phone, and I found a lot of information that shocked me. At the top of her text message list was one of her ex-boyfriends. Specifically, one of her exes that she told me cheated on her 3 times and made her feel like complete garbage. He had reached out to her and told her that he missed her and wanted to get back together with her. She confessed that she still had feelings for him, but didn't know what to do about it. Her ex started talking about all of the times they had together, and the conversation took a very sexual turn. My girlfriend then started sexting with him and role-playing via text message. They had exchanged dozens of pictures and videos with each other. The entire time I was looking at those messages, my girlfriend was crying and begging me to forgive her for what she did. She swore up and down that she and him hadn't met up to sleep together, but through the context of their messages, I determined that was a lie. I should have seen the signs that her accusations about me cheating were just her projecting her own guilt onto me. I felt guilty for even having female friends at some points because of how insecure it made her. I was furious that she had me feel so bad about the possibility that I was cheating on her when she actually cheated on me. I kicked her out of the apartment, and I told her that I didn't want anything to do with her. She was crying and begging me to move past it. She tried to make it seem like her ex had manipulated her into sleeping with her, but I read the messages and it didn't seem that way. It seemed like she was more than willing to go back to the man that she still had strong feelings for. It was such a shame because I saw a future with her, and she threw it away for somebody who had no respect for her. I knew that if she got back together with him, they would break up shortly after because he was going to betray her trust again. After my girlfriend left, I tried to figure out what I wanted to do. She cheated on me with a jerk that she complained about throughout our entire relationship, and I was angry about it. We had the same friend group after the years that we had been together, and I knew how important that was to her. When something like this happens in a relationship, the friends are naturally going to be forced to take a side. I didn't want her getting in their ear and convincing them to take her side. I reached out to one of my good friends who also happened to be one of the biggest gossips in her friend group. She came over, and we talked about what happened, and she told me about how wrong everything was. Within days, everybody else in her friend group had texted me and told me that they were sorry about what happened. I knew that my friend had told everyone, and I had a good chance of winning their favor at the end of our relationship. As it turns out, I made the right choice because none of them were willing to let my girlfriend stay with them after I kicked her out. They were all angry with her about her actions, and they made sure that she had to face the consequences of them. She ended up moving back in with the ex that she cheated on me with. Through the grapevine, I was able to learn that she had dated him for a few weeks before he told her that he didn't want to be exclusive with her. She was obviously very unhappy about that, so she moved back in with her parents. As it turned out, my girlfriend was right to be suspicious about Jane. Apparently, she did have a bit of a crush on me, but I didn't realize at the time. After a few months of being broken up with my girlfriend, I opened up to Jane about it at work, and she confessed that she had feelings for me. Jane and I have been dating for a year now. It's a much better relationship than what I had with my ex. I never feel like I'm being constantly judged or accused of cheating, and there's actually trust in our relationship. OP, I'm so sorry you had to go through all of this. It can be very frustrating to be accused of doing something that you're not guilty of. I think in this case, it sounds like it came from your girlfriend's past relationship trauma as well as her guilty conscience. Loyalty tests are extremely frustrating. Normally, I would say that if you don't have a trusting relationship with your partner, you should end it. It was clear from the start of this post that your girlfriend had trust issues that she needed to work on. Realistically, she would probably benefit from some time being single. It's important when you're hurt in a relationship to take time for yourself, and it doesn't seem like she was doing that. Because of that, she fell into a very bad habit. I don't understand why she would go back with an ex who treated her so poorly. Maybe something is drawing her to him because she knows what he's like, and being hurt by him again wouldn't be as hard as being hurt by someone new. I'm glad that you and Jane are happy together now. It seems like the of you have a lot in common and some potential to have a great relationship. I wish you both nothing but the best. Now let's move on to our next story. I 33 male and my girlfriend 28 female met online through a Discord server for a podcast we both liked. There was a channel in the server to post pictures of your animals, and she fell in love with my dog before she fell in love with me. After I uploaded a lot of pictures of them, she sent me a DM and we started talking. I developed feelings for her before I even saw her. She did the same. I had been thinking about a girl I had never seen before, and it was driving me crazy, so I confessed my feelings for her, and she was very happy. We actually only lived about 5 hours away from each other so we could try and form a relationship. We agreed to meet up after a few weeks of talking over video chat, and it felt like finally placing that last puzzle piece and making it whole. Then the pandemic happened. It was really difficult for us to see each other in person, so we went back to our long-distance origins and spent our nights together on video chat. We did everything that a long-distance couple could do to spend time together, and it was fine, but it wasn't ideal. I have always been a big gamer. I followed a lot of news in the industry, and I always made sure I could buy the latest consoles and the newest hit games. So when the new Animal Crossing game came out at the beginning of the pandemic, everybody was raving about it. It was such a fun way to get together with friends and do something virtually. My girlfriend hadn't been crazy about video games before Animal Crossing, but because I wanted to spend that time with her, I ended up buying her a Nintendo Switch with the game. We spent a lot of time together visiting each other's islands and playing the game. It was a very fun time for us, and I really cherish those moments we shared, even if it was in a video game. Now my girlfriend was online a lot. She was laid off from her job and having a really difficult time finding a new one, so she spent a lot of time on the internet at home. I had actually convinced her to send an application to my place of employment because they were looking for remote workers. She applied, and I promised to try to put a good word in for her. I knew that she had met some other people over the internet that she played Animal Crossing with, but I didn't know anything about them. I just expected them to be online friends and nothing else. Of course, in hindsight, I realized my girlfriend and I were online friends before we were together. I didn't have any reason not to trust her, so I didn't think that she would be talking romantically with another person online. A few weeks had passed, and my girlfriend was sort of nudging me to update her on her application status at my job. When I checked on it, the hiring manager told me that they had received a lot of applications, and they were still looking through them. They were keeping an eye out for hers, but they couldn't make any promises. I told her that, and she seemed very disappointed by the news, but she was understanding overall. Not long after we had that conversation, we were online talking about a movie we were planning on watching together when I got a random notification on Discord. It was from an account I wasn't friends with, and we weren't in any mutual servers or anything like that. I had no idea who this person was, but they were claiming to know my girlfriend. I didn't say anything while I was on the phone with her because I wanted to see what this person was trying to get at. I humored them and started talking. They confessed to me that my girlfriend had been flirting with them online, and recently they had taken the next step in their relationship. I was curious about what that was, so I asked. He told me that he went to visit her, and they slept together. I was shocked by that news, and I wasn't sure that I believed it. My girlfriend was normally very shy, and on top of that, the world had only been shut down for about 5 months by that point. We were still in the height of the pandemic, and it seemed like it would be irresponsible to just meet up with some random person you met online to sleep with them. I told them that they were lying and I thought it was a bad joke, but they sent me messages and pictures to prove it. They told me that they had no idea that I existed until they were at my girlfriend's house. Apparently, she felt really guilty after the fact, and she confessed to them that she was in a relationship with me. I couldn't deny the proof when I saw it. It was very clearly my girlfriend, and I had no way to excuse what the person was telling me. I was on the phone with her at the time and just completely frozen. I didn't know what to say to her. I've never been a confrontational person, and having conversations like that was difficult for me, but I knew that I needed to end things with her. She cheated on me with some random person from the internet. Not only was that a breach of my trust, but it was extremely irresponsible given what was happening in the world at the time. I asked the man how they met, and he said that they had been playing Animal Crossing online with each other for a few weeks and they had developed a connection with each other. They only lived about 45 minutes away from each other, and they had both been in lockdown for so long that they figured no harm would come of being with each other. I ended up telling my girlfriend that I had a bad headache and needed to get off the call early. I spoke to the other guy on Discord for a while after I hung up the phone to try and figure out all of the details. From the way he made it sound, it seemed like from the beginning of their relationship, she was interested in pursuing him. I felt like I had been stabbed in the back by her. I had never been betrayed like that in a relationship, so I took it very hard. I didn't talk to her for a couple of days, and she kept spamming me with messages asking me about what was going on. All I could think about was how I needed to break up with her, but I didn't know how to do it. I went back to work the following Monday and I ran into the hiring manager that I had been asking to look into my girlfriend's resume so often. I lied to her and told her to pull my girlfriend's resume because she found another job. Working with her wouldn't have been an option even if she was going to be working remotely. I would still have to see her name in emails, see her in Zoom calls, and maintain a cordial relationship with her at work. I didn't think I could handle that. She broke my heart, and I didn't want to have to worry about seeing her in any capacity while I was at work. The hiring manager thanked me for letting her know and made a note to toss the resume when she came across it. Later that night, I realized that I needed to have a conversation with my girlfriend. We got on a call, and she was asking me if everything was all right because I'd been very distant. Then I confessed that I knew what happened. She instantly broke down and apologized and tried to tell me that she knew it was a mistake and she wished that she could take it back. Unfortunately, she couldn't take it back. She would never be able to undo what she did, and that was something she would have to live with. At the end of the call, I broke up with her. I felt like I really loved her, and she tossed aside our relationship as if it meant nothing to her. Coming back from something like that is really difficult. I stopped talking to her altogether, and I blocked her on everything that I could. After the unemployment benefits were taken away when things started getting back in order toward the end of the pandemic, I was curious to see if she had ever landed a job. From what I could gather when I looked online, she was still looking and she was really struggling with maintaining her lifestyle on the low income she had. I know it makes me a bad person, but it really felt like karma. I could have gotten her job at my company without any issue, but she stabbed me in the back, so I sabotaged that. I knew that if she didn't regret cheating on me when it came to ruining our relationship, she would regret it because she lost out on a great job. It's been a couple of years since all of that happened and I've moved on. I've dated a few other women and I've had my share of trust issues, but I'm actively trying to work through them so I can have a healthy relationship in the future. OP, I'm sorry to hear that you had to go through all of this. The pandemic was a tough time for everybody, and it seems like you did everything you could to continue having a strong relationship with your partner. Long distance is hard enough, but taking away the ability to go and see that person only makes it more difficult. I understand not assuming that her online friendships would grow into anything more, so you can't blame yourself for not seeing this coming. When you're in a relationship with someone, you don't want to believe that they're capable of hurting you, but sometimes they can be very selfish. Aside from how selfish it is to cheat on your partner, cheating with a virtual stranger in the middle of the pandemic is ridiculous. It was a very high-risk time for people to socialize, and meeting up with someone you don't truly know to sleep with is just weird. Anybody can lie about who they are or what they do on the internet, and that was a very risky move on her part. I think you did the right thing by having her resume pulled from your company. Working with her, even if she was going to be working remotely, would probably only remind you of the wounds she caused. And you're right, it is karma that she couldn't find another job. She lost out on the potential for a good one when she lost out on her relationship with you. She probably knows that her actions have consequences now, and hopefully she'll think about that moving forward in her life. It's good that you're dating again and actively working to heal yourself from this relationship, and I wish you nothing but the best in the future. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me.